Hey, this is Aaron.
And Blake, we're AB Data.
Thanks for walking through this Alteryx Weekly challenge with us.
In this video, we're taking a look at Alteryx Weekly Challenge number 229, Trend Analysis. As always, the Alteryx Weekly Challenge can be found in the Alteryx community under the Academy and Weekly Challenge. If you'd like to follow along, you can download the start file, .yxzp Alteryx package, and follow along with us. The goal of this weekly challenge is to take two data sets and plot them onto interactive charts after calculating a trend line. We want to overlay the trend line on top of the bar charts and then publish it to PowerPoint. So looking at our inputs, not a lot of data. We've got 18 records in two independent text input tools. Ultimately, we want to plot those data points onto bar charts, and we want to create the output, which is going to be a side-by-side view in PowerPoint. One option for calculating the trend lines would be to follow the formula that's provided to us in the comment box up at the top of the canvas in a slightly different way, and we'll walk through those tools shortly. First, we'll take the input number 1, calculate the trend line, create our chart. We'll copy and paste all that logic and quickly replicate it for input 2, and then we will publish them side by side using the layout tool. So let's take a close look at input number 1. Here we're using a record ID tool to assign the X coordinate value. We will map the fiscal month back in. But the first thing we want to do is just calculate the mean of our X value and the mean of our Y value. Thinking back to algebra class in high school, we're trying to come up with the Y equals mx plus b slope-intercept theorem. So here in our formula tool, we're taking X minus the mean of X for each of our 18 data points, Y minus the mean of Y. We're squaring the difference. And then using our summarize tool to take those two new fields and sum the squares together. After using the summarize tool to come up with the sum of our squares, we're just using another formula tool to calculate the slope, or the m value in our equation. And once we have that data point, we're appending it back to the main data table. Ultimately, we want to calculate our intercept. So here, taking the mean of y minus the slope times the mean of x. And then using a select tool, we can really isolate or narrow our focus on the b value, or the intercept, as well as the m, which is the slope. Here we're counting the number of records and generating rows to match those 18 data points. And in our last formula tool, we actually have our y equals mx plus b formula, where the row count is our x value for each of our records, multiplying that times the slope, our m value, and then adding on that y-intercept. And that gives us our trend. Joining it back to the main data table, we can isolate our focus and just keep the three data points that we're concerned with. And then it's time for the interactive chart tool. So when we configure the chart, we ultimately will need to add two layers, but you'll want to start by adding layer 0, which in my case is the bar chart. So for the type of chart, I selected bar. The x-axis is the fiscal month, and y is the performance number. And then layer number 1 is similar, with the x-axis as the fiscal month, but we're using a line chart to plot the trend. The axis, the way it was shown to us in the desired output, had a custom starting range for the y value. So selected 80 for the first chart, and if we take a look at input number 2, and we were able to replicate this logic by copy and pasting. But we can skip to the end of the container and take a look at our trend results. And these values start in the 40s. So you'll see that the minimum axis value for the y-axis is set much lower. So our goal is to have these two charts set side by side, and ultimately we want to publish them to one PowerPoint slide. So in our layout tool, after using a union to stack these two chart objects in the same column, we're using the layout tool to publish them horizontally with a bit of a buffer in between. Using the report text tool, we can add our title to the top of our PowerPoint slide. And here we're choosing to render a specific output file with the extension .pptx, which is for Microsoft PowerPoint. And I've chosen a landscape orientation so that the image looks nicely on the slide. So there's our output. We've got a formatted PowerPoint slide. I would like to point out that there's a macro in the Alteryx community that is really useful when it comes to looking at the logic to calculate the least squares regression. So I'd recommend taking a look at that as you solve this weekly challenge.
Thank you for learning with us today. Good luck on your Alteryx journey.
For more information on custom training, managed service automations, and more, please visit our website at abdataconsulting.com.